Commander Ilara Vex stood on the command deck of the Sovereign Wrath, her sleek silver uniform gleaming under the ambient blue light of the bridge. The holographic display before her showed the small blue-green planet that would soon be another conquest for the Novalian Empire. Pathetic, she murmured, her violet eyes narrowing as she studied the primitive orbital stations and satellites circling Earth. These humans still burn fossil fuels and fight among themselves over arbitrary borders. Her second-in-command, Admiral Thorne, approached with a crisp salute. "The fleet is in position, Commander. Our intelligence suggests minimal resistance. Their militaries are fragmented, and their weapons are centuries behind ours." "Excellent." Ilara brushed a strand of platinum hair from her face. "Begin the standard protocol. Disable their communications, then target their military installations. I want this conquest clean and efficient." The Novalian Empire had conquered 12 worlds in the last decade alone. Humans would be like all the others, shocked by superior technology, overwhelmed by precision strikes, and quickly surrendering to become another resource-producing colony. It was practically routine. "Commander," called the tactical officer, his voice unusually tense. "Earth forces are responding." Ilara turned sharply. "Responding? With what? Projectile weapons?" "No, Commander. They've activated previously undetected orbital defense systems. And their vessels are coordinating." Before Ilara could process this information, the Sovereign Wrath shuddered violently. The bridge lights flickered as warning signals blared. "Report," she demanded, steadying herself against her command console. "Multiple direct hits from energy weapons we didn't detect." Admiral Thorne's usual composure had vanished. "4 of our forward ships have sustained critical damage. The humans have. They've cloaked their defenses somehow." "Impossible. Their intelligence had been thorough. Humans were divided, technologically inferior. Yet here they were, mounting a coordinated defense with weapons that could damage Novalian warships. All vessels, initiate combat pattern Epsilon." Ilara commanded, her mind racing. "Target their orbital platforms and launch fighters." For 6 brutal hours, the space around Earth became a theater of war unlike anything Ilara had experienced. Human ships, smaller but surprisingly agile, swarmed her fleet with tactics that defied conventional strategy. Their communications remained intact despite Novalian jamming technology, suggesting encryption far beyond what intelligence had reported. When a massive explosion rocked the Sovereign Wrath, splitting the command deck in two, Ilara knew the unthinkable had happened. They were losing. "Evacuation protocols," she ordered, helping a wounded officer toward the escape pods. "All personnel, abandon ship." Her escape pod jettisoned into the chaos of battle. Through the viewport, Ilara watched in disbelief as the Sovereign Wrath, her flagship for 7 glorious years of conquest, broke apart in Earth's orbit, debris scattering like a funeral pyre across the stars. The pod's navigation systems failed shortly after launch, sending her spiraling toward Earth's atmosphere. As heat built up around the small craft, Ilara closed her eyes, certain she was descending to her death. Instead, she woke to the sound of voices, human voices, and the sensation of being dragged from the wreckage. Through blurred vision, she saw a tall figure silhouetted against harsh lights. "This one's alive," said a deep male voice. And judging by the uniform, high-ranking. Rough hands secured her wrists with restraints. The indignity of it burned hotter than her injuries. "I am Commander Ilara Vex of the Novalian Imperial Fleet," she spat, trying and failing to stand. "You will release me or face the consequences when my forces regroup." The silhouette stepped closer, resolving into a human male with intense gray eyes and a face marked by a scar across his left cheek. His uniform bore insignia she didn't recognize. "I'm Captain Marcus Jensen, Earth Defense Force," he replied coolly. And your forces won't be regrouping anytime soon, Commander. Half your fleet is destroyed. The rest retreated beyond the Kuiper Belt. Lies, she hissed, though doubt had already taken root. We've been watching your empire's expansion for decades, Jensen continued. Preparing. You thought us primitive, divided. That was your first mistake. His gaze hardened. Attacking us was your second. As they loaded her onto a transport, Elara caught glimpses of the night sky, no signs of battle, no Novalian ships. Only stars and the realization that the Novalian Empire had, for the first time, failed a conquest. And she, its most decorated commander, was now at the mercy of the very species she had dismissed as inferior. The holding facility deep beneath the Rocky Mountains was a marvel of engineering that Elara Vex reluctantly admired. 3 weeks as a prisoner of war had given her ample time to study her surroundings, reinforced walls that could withstand orbital bombardment, energy fields calibrated specifically to contain Novalian physiology, and surveillance systems that tracked her every movement. Good morning, Commander. Dr. Aidan Reynolds entered her chamber, carrying his usual medical kit. Unlike the guards who kept their distance, viewing her as a dangerous alien commander, Dr. Reynolds approached with an ease that both intrigued and irritated her. Nothing about captivity is good, Doctor, she replied coldly, though she straightened her posture as he approached. His daily visits had become the only break in her monotonous confinement. He smiled slightly, unaffected by her hostility. The burns on your back are healing well, but I'd like to apply a new regenerative compound. His hazel eyes met hers directly, something most humans avoided. May I? Elara turned, presenting her back and lifting the simple gray medical gown. The crash landing had left extensive burns across her shoulder blades, the pearlescent skin now scarred with patches of angry pink. On Novalis, such disfigurement would have seen her relieved of command. Appearance was as important as ability in the imperial hierarchy. His fingers were unexpectedly gentle as they applied the cool gel. The cellular structure of your skin is fascinating, he commented. It regenerates differently than ours, but responds well to our treatments. Your primitive medicine is adequate, she conceded, though in truth, she was impressed by how quickly the pain had subsided under his care. Primitive? A hint of amusement colored his voice. Yet effective enough to repair damage from your superior technology. Something about his confidence, not arrogance, but a quiet certainty, made Elara turn to face him. Why do you treat me, Doctor? I commanded the fleet that would have subjugated your world. Aidan's hands paused their work. Because you're injured, and I'm a doctor. His expression turned thoughtful. And because understanding you might help prevent more suffering on both sides. Their conversation was interrupted as Captain Jensen entered with 2 armed guards. Doctor, the Joint Chiefs need your report on Novalian physiology. Commander Vex, your interrogation is scheduled for 1,400 hours. Elara tensed. Previous interrogations had consisted of endless questions about Novalian fleet movements and military capabilities, questions she had refused to answer. Captain, Aidan interjected, her neural patterns are still showing stress responses from the crash. Another interrogation could compromise her recovery. Jensen's scarred face remained impassive. The coalition needs information. The Novalian Empire is regrouping beyond Neptune, and we need to know their capabilities. They will return, Elara stated flatly. And they will not underestimate you again. After Jensen left, Aidan finished treating her burns in silence. Your intervention was unnecessary, Elara said finally. I am trained to withstand interrogation. I'm sure you are. He closed his medical kit. But that doesn't mean you should have to. Not while under my care. Over the following weeks, Aidan's daily visits lengthened. What began as medical examinations evolved into conversations about their respective worlds. Elara learned of Earth's fractured history, how centuries of internal conflict had paradoxically prepared humans for external threats. Aiden, in turn, asked about Novalian culture, questions not about military capabilities, but about art, governance, and beliefs. Your people value conformity in collective achievement, he observed one evening as they shared a meal, another unexpected courtesy. Yet you speak with individual passion about music and architecture. The Empire values order, she corrected, finding herself unexpectedly defensive. Without it, we would have remained isolated on a dying world rather than becoming a galactic power. At the cost of others' freedom? The question hung between them, unanswered. That night, alone in her chamber, Elara dreamed of Novalis, not the gleaming imperial capital she had left, but the struggling world of her childhood, before the expansion began. She woke with unfamiliar moisture on her cheeks. The next morning, alarms blared throughout the facility. Her chamber door opened unexpectedly, and Aiden rushed in, his lab coat singed and face smudged with ash. "We need to move," he said urgently. "The facility is under attack." "My people?" Hope and dread mingled in her voice. "Yes. They've broken through the outer defenses." He held out his hand. "Come with me. Please." She hesitated only briefly before taking it. His skin was warmer than hers, the sensation both alien and strangely comforting. As they navigated smoke-filled corridors, Elara realized she faced a choice she had never anticipated, between the empire she had served loyally and the human who had treated her with unexpected dignity. When a section of ceiling collapsed, she acted instinctively, pushing Aiden clear as debris crashed down. Pain flared across her newly healed back, but she remained standing, shielding him with her body. His eyes widened in surprise. "You saved me." Elara's reply caught in her throat as an explosion rocked the facility, sending them both into darkness. Consciousness returned to Elara in fragments, the acrid smell of smoke, the distant sound of weapons fire, and the sensation of movement. She was being carried. Through half-open eyes, she saw Aiden's determined face above her, his jaw set as he navigated through what appeared to be maintenance tunnels beneath the facility. "Put me down," she managed, her voice hoarse. "I can walk." Aiden paused, gently lowering her to her feet but keeping one arm around her waist for support. "You've been unconscious for nearly an hour. The debris hit you harder than I thought." The reality of her situation crystallized sharply. "You're taking me away from my people." Accusation edged her tone. "They've come for me, and you're preventing my rescue. Is that what you think this is? A rescue?" His voice remained calm, but his eyes reflected something like disappointment. "They fired on a medical facility, Elara. There were patients there who had nothing to do with the war." The use of her first name, something he had never done before, momentarily distracted her from the implication of his words. "The Empire doesn't target non-combatants. Our protocols are precise." Maybe they were once. Aiden's expression hardened. "But the attack that hit us wasn't surgical. It was carpet bombing, designed to maximize casualties." Before she could respond, the tunnel shook with another distant explosion. Dust rained down from the ceiling. "We need to keep moving," he urged. "This section isn't stable." They emerged hours later into a forested area, the mountain range looming behind them. Night had fallen, and the stars above were partially obscured by smoke from the burning complex. In the distance, the silhouettes of Novalian fighters streaked across the sky, their energy weapons illuminating the clouds. Aiden led her to a small, camouflaged structure nearly invisible among the trees. Inside was basic survival equipment, medical supplies, communications gear, and provisions. "Emergency bunker," he explained. "All major facilities have them." "You brought me here instead of to your military," Elara observed, sinking onto a bench as exhaustion claimed her. "Why?" "Because I'm not convinced you're the enemy they think you are." He began treating a gash on her arm she hadn't even noticed. And because I've seen something in you these past weeks that doesn't align with the ruthless conqueror narrative. His proximity as he worked sent an unfamiliar warmth through her, despite the coolness of the bunker. The casual touch of his fingers against her skin triggered sensations she had never experienced with her own kind, a heightened awareness, a peculiar tension that wasn't entirely unpleasant. What you've seen is an Imperial commander adapting to captivity, she said, trying to maintain her composure. Nothing more. Aiden's eyes met hers, uncomfortably perceptive. You pushed me out of the way of falling debris, Elara. You risked your life for mine. That's not adaptation, that's something else entirely. She had no answer for that. Days passed in the isolated bunker. Through Aiden's secure communication system, they learned that the Novalian attack had been repelled, but at great cost. Earth forces had captured several enemy craft, gaining valuable intelligence about Novalian technology in the process. They'll analyze everything, Elara said as they listened to the reports. But they won't understand it fully. Novalian systems are intuitive, designed to respond to our specific neural patterns. Aiden looked at her thoughtfully. You could help them understand. That would be treason. Would it? Or would it be preventing unnecessary deaths on both sides? He moved to sit beside her. Your empire isn't coming back for you, Elara. The prisoners they took confirmed it. Anyone captured is considered compromised and abandoned. The words struck her like physical blows. You're lying. I'm not. His hand covered hers, warm and steady. I'm sorry. That night, unable to sleep, Elara stepped outside the bunker. The unfamiliar constellations of Earth's sky spread above her, beautiful in their strangeness. She had committed her life to bringing worlds under imperial control, never questioning the righteousness of expansion. Now, cast away by the very empire she had served faithfully, she felt adrift. She sensed rather than heard Aiden approach. On Novalis, she said without turning, there are 2 moons. As children, we're told they're the eyes of the eternal emperor, watching to ensure we remain loyal. And do you believe that? I did. Now. She turned to face him. Now I don't know what I believe anymore. The night air between them seemed charged with unspoken possibilities. When he stepped closer, she didn't retreat. When his hand rose to touch her face, she leaned into the contact, surprising herself. Your skin, he murmured. It almost seems to glow in the moonlight. Bioluminescent properties, she explained, her voice unexpectedly soft. All Novalians have them. They intensify with emotional states. The realization that she was indeed glowing more brightly than usual sent a flash of embarrassment through her. Among her people, such a display would be considered an unforgivable loss of control, especially for a commander. But Aiden's expression held only wonder. It's beautiful. When his lips met hers, the sensation was alien yet somehow right, like discovering a new star exactly where astronomical calculations predicted it would be. Her hands found his shoulders, then his hair, fascinated by the textures so different from her own people. Later, breathless and uncertain in this new territory between them, Elara made her decision. I'll help you understand the technology, she said. Not for your military, but for you. To prevent more deaths on both sides. She paused, finding words for an emotion she had never been permitted to acknowledge. And because I can't bear the thought of you being in danger when the next attack comes. Aiden's smile in response illuminated something within her that had been dark for too long. The Earth Defense Forces Central Command had relocated to an underground facility in New Zealand following the attacks. It was here, 6 weeks after her escape with Aiden, that Elara found herself explaining the intricacies of Novalian shield harmonics to a room of suspicious military officials. The oscillation frequency changes every 30 seconds according to this algorithm, she explained, drawing complex equations on the holographic display. That's why your weapons were only intermittently effective during the first assault. Captain Jensen, now promoted to colonel, watched her with undisguised skepticism. And we're supposed to believe you're giving us accurate information? You commanded their fleet. I did. Elara met his gaze without flinching. And now I've been declared vexary, excommunicated, by the Imperial High Command. My biometric signature has been removed from Novalian systems. I am, effectively, no longer Novalian in their eyes. The weight of that reality still pressed heavily upon her. In the weeks since learning of her abandonment, she had accessed transmissions from the Empire, confirming what Aiden had told her. Not only had she been disavowed, but her name had been used as an example of failure, a cautionary tale for other commanders. Aiden stepped forward. Commander Vex's information has already helped us modify our defensive systems. The latest Novalian probing attacks were repelled with minimal casualties. After the briefing, they retreated to the small quarters they now shared. Once alone, Elara allowed her carefully maintained composure to slip, her shoulders sagging with exhaustion. They still don't trust me, she said, sinking onto the edge of the bed. Not that I blame them. Aiden sat beside her, taking her hand. What had begun as an unexpected attraction had deepened into something neither of them had names for, something that transcended their different biologies and cultures. Trust takes time, he reminded her gently. But they're listening. That's progress. She leaned against him, drawing comfort from his solid presence. On Novalis, what I'm doing would warrant execution. Sharing military secrets is the highest treason. Is it treason to prevent senseless deaths? His fingers traced the line of her jaw, sending pleasant shivers across her skin. To choose compassion over blind loyalty? Compassion is seen as weakness in the Empire. She turned to face him fully. But here, with you, I'm starting to think it might be the greatest strength. Their lips met in what had become a familiar dance of discovery. Human and Novalian, so different in form yet remarkably compatible in ways neither species had imagined possible. In these private moments, the war seemed distant, a problem belonging to others. Until the emergency alert shattered their brief peace. All personnel to battle stations, came the automated announcement. Unidentified craft approaching perimeter. This is not a drill. They rushed to the command center, where tactical displays showed a single Novalian shuttle requesting landing clearance. It's broadcasting on an old Imperial frequency, Elara said, studying the data stream. One that wouldn't be in current use. Colonel Jensen turned to her. A trap? Possibly. She frowned, something about the signal pattern tickling her memory. Or, wait. That's Admiral Thorne's personal authentication code. Your former second-in-command? Aiden asked. Yes, but this doesn't make sense. Why would he come alone? A cold suspicion formed in her mind. Unless. Unless what? Jensen demanded. Unless he's not here on Imperial orders. She met Jensen's gaze. I need to speak with him. The meeting was arranged in a secure chamber, with Thorne, still proud in his Imperial uniform despite obvious signs of recent injury, separated from Elara by an energy barrier. Commander Vex, he greeted her with a formal bow that did little to hide his disdain. Or should I say, Vexery Elara? Admiral Thorne. You've taken my position, I see. She nodded to the new insignia on his collar. Congratulations on your promotion over my dishonor. His face hardened. I didn't come for pleasantries. I came to inform you that your human friend has been taken. The words hit her like a physical blow. What are you talking about? Dr. Reynolds is not here, Thorne finished for her. He was extracted 20 minutes ago by an advance team while I provided this distraction. Quite effectively, it seems. Ice formed in her veins as she realized Aiden had left the command center before her to check on a patient. If you've harmed him. He's unharmed, for now. Thorne's smile didn't reach his eyes. The new Supreme Commander wants to study him. Humans have proven more resilient than our intelligence suggested. And your particular specimen seems to have unique insights into our technology, thanks to your treason. What do you want? A trade. You, for him. The Supreme Commander believes you possess valuable intelligence about Earth's defenses. Your execution for treason will be postponed until that information is extracted. Ilara's mind raced. How do I know he's alive? Thorne activated a small holographic projector. The image showed Aiden, confined but apparently uninjured, in what she recognized as a Novalian holding cell. You have 6 hours to surrender at these coordinates. Thorne provided a data chip. Come alone, or he dies. After Thorne departed, Ilara faced a room of grim-faced Earth officials. It's obviously a trap, Jensen stated flatly. They'll kill both of you once they have what they want. I know. Ilara's voice was steady despite the storm of emotions within her. But I'm going anyway. That's suicide, one of the generals protested. No. She straightened, once again the commander she had been trained to be. It's strategy. Admiral Thorne expects me to come through the front door, offering myself in exchange for Dr. Reynolds. Instead, I'm going to teach the Empire exactly why underestimating humans, and those who love them, is their greatest mistake. The plan came together rapidly. A small team of Earth's elite forces, guided by Ilara's intimate knowledge of Novalian ship layouts and security protocols, would accompany her in a stealth approach while a more visible force created a diversion. As she prepared for the mission, donning a modified combat suit designed to accommodate her Novalian physiology, Colonel Jensen approached her. Why? He asked simply. Why risk everything for one human? Ilara checked her weapons with practiced efficiency. Because he saw me as a person when everyone else saw an enemy. Because he showed me that there are things worth fighting for beyond conquest and power. She looked up, her violet eyes bright with an emotion no imperial training had prepared her for. And because I love him in ways the Empire taught us were impossible. Jensen studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Let's bring him home, Commander. The Novalian command ship loomed against the backdrop of Earth's moon, its sleek profile bristling with weapons designed to subjugate worlds. From the cloaked approach vessel, Ilara studied the familiar contours of what had once been her domain, now transformed into her battlefield. The holding cells will be on the 4th level, she explained to the 6-person Earth Special Forces team accompanying her. Security consists of biometric scanners calibrated to Novalian physiology, neural dampening fields, and armed guards. Major Kira Wells, leader of the human strike team, adjusted her tactical gear. And you're sure your access codes won't trigger alarms? My codes were purged when I was declared Vexery, Ilara admitted. But Admiral Thorne has a predictable mind. He'll have maintained certain backdoor protocols, contingencies he established during my command. She didn't mention that accessing those protocols would immediately alert Thorne to her presence. The diversion would buy them minutes, nothing more. The approach was seamless. Earth's main fleet engaged the Novalian defensive line several thousand kilometers away, drawing attention exactly as planned. Their small craft slipped through, attaching to a maintenance airlock monitored by automated systems rather than living guards. Once aboard, Ilara felt a disconcerting sense of homecoming, the familiar cool temperature, the subtle humming of Novalian technology tuned to frequencies that resonated with her biology, the gravity calibrated precisely to Novalis standards. Yet nothing felt right anymore. This was no longer her world. They encountered the first guards at a junction leading to the detention level. Elara stepped forward before the humans could engage. Venari Krell Nomus, she said, using the formal greeting of superior to subordinate. The guards hesitated just long enough for Major Wells' team to stun them with modified energy weapons calibrated to Novalian nervous systems, another innovation Elara had helped develop. The detention level was more heavily guarded, but the diversion had worked better than expected. Most security personnel had been diverted to battle stations. Using Thorn's backdoor access codes, Elara bypassed the main security gates, triggering alarms throughout the ship as she'd anticipated. "We have minutes before they lock down the entire vessel," she warned. They found Aiden in the third cell, strapped to an examination table. Medical equipment of Novalian design monitored his vital signs while a neural probe hovered ominously above him. The sight sent a surge of fury through Elara that eclipsed anything she had felt in combat. He was conscious but sedated, his eyes widening in recognition as she approached. "Elara? You shouldn't be here, it's a trap." "I know." She worked quickly to release his restraints. "That's why we brought our own trap." As she helped him to his feet, the ship's internal communication system activated, Admiral Thorn's voice filling the chamber. "Commander Vex. How predictable you've become. Throwing away the glorious traditions of the Empire for a lesser species." His tone carried the formal cadence used for criminal sentences. "The holding level is now sealed. Surrender, and your human's death will be quick." Elara supported Aiden with one arm while activating her communication device with the other. "Colonel Jensen, execute final phase." Outside, the Earth fleet that had been engaging the Novalian forces suddenly broke off, retreating at maximum speed. Confused by this apparent victory, the Novalian vessels held position, exactly as planned. "What's happening?" Aiden asked, his strength returning as the sedatives wore off. Elara's expression was grim. "What the Empire taught me best, overwhelming force applied at the enemy's weakest point." 3 Earth vessels uncloaked directly behind the Novalian command ship, firing modified weapons designed according to Elara's specifications, weapons that targeted the specific frequency of the ship's engine containment fields. The command ship shuddered violently. Emergency klaxons blared as lighting systems flickered to auxiliary power. "Engine containment breach," came the automated announcement in the musical Novalian language. "All personnel evacuate immediately. Reactor shutdown initiated." "That's our cue," Major Wells announced, securing the exit route. They fought their way back to the airlock against increasingly desperate resistance. Novalian soldiers, recognizing Elara, focused their attacks on her with particular fury. A blast caught her in the shoulder, spinning her against a bulkhead. Aiden, despite his weakened state, pulled her behind cover. "You're hit." "Superficial," she grunted, though the pain was intense. "Keep moving." As they neared the airlock, Admiral Thorn himself appeared with a final contingent of guards, his aristocratic features contorted with rage. "Traitor," he spat, energy weapon aimed directly at her. "You would destroy your own people for these primitives?" Elara stepped forward, placing herself between Thorn and the others. "I would end a pointless war. The humans aren't what we were told, Thorn. They're not mindless resources to be exploited. They're capable of something our empire never taught us." "And what is that?" he sneered. "Mercy," she said simply. "Even for their enemies." She expected him to fire, to end her life in the name of imperial honor. Instead, confusion flickered across his face, followed by shock as the deck beneath them buckled. The containment breach was accelerating. "Go," she urged the humans. "The ship is breaking apart." Major Wells and her team retreated to the airlock with Aiden, but he pulled away, returning to Elara's side. "Not without you," he insisted. Thorn raised his weapon again, but hesitated as the ship groaned around them. In that moment of indecision, Elara made her choice. She knocked the weapon from his hand, not to attack, but to grasp his arm. "Come with us," she urged. "The Empire is wrong about Earth. See the truth for yourself." Stunned by the offer, Thorne allowed himself to be pulled toward the airlock as the section behind them collapsed. They barely made it to the Earth vessel before the command ship's reactor containment failed completely, sending a shockwave that buffeted their smaller craft as it accelerated away. 3 months later, Elara stood at the window of the newly established Interspecies Diplomatic Center, watching the new Geneva skyline as sunset painted the buildings in gold and amber. Formal peace negotiations had begun the previous week, with the Novalian Empire, shaken by the loss of their command ship and the defection of several key military leaders following Admiral Thorne's unexpected testimony, finally willing to consider Earth as an equal rather than a conquest. Warm arms encircled her from behind, and she leaned back into Aiden's embrace. "The Medical Council approved our joint research proposal," he told her, kissing the sensitive spot where her neck met her shoulder. "Full funding for the Xenobiology Institute." She turned in his arms, still marveling at how perfectly they fit together despite their biological differences. "And the genetic compatibility studies?" "Approved as well, though several council members seemed a bit scandalized by the implications." His smile held a warmth that never failed to illuminate her from within. Their relationship had become something of a sensation, the first publicly acknowledged human-Novalian pair, a symbol of the possibilities that peace offered. What had begun in the sterile confines of a detention facility had blossomed into something neither of their species had terminology to properly describe. "Admiral Thorne's ship leaves tomorrow," she said, changing the subject. "He asked to see us before his departure." Aiden raised an eyebrow. "Should I be concerned?" "No." She smiled. "I think he wants to understand." "Understand what?" "Us. This." She gestured between them, then toward the city where humans and the small contingent of Novalian diplomats now moved freely. How enemies became allies. How different species found common ground. "And what will you tell him?" Elara considered the question as she had many times since their escape. That conquest through force creates only temporary victories, but conquest through compassion, she placed her hand over his heart, feeling its steady rhythm, endures. Later, as they lay entwined in the darkness of their shared quarters, the bioluminescence of her skin casting a soft glow over them both, Aiden traced the patterns of light that responded to her emotions. "You're thinking about tomorrow's negotiations," he murmured. "Yes." She sighed. "The Empire won't easily abandon generations of expansionist ideology. Some still view your people, our people, as lesser beings. Then we'll show them otherwise." His fingers intertwined with hers. "One day at a time." As sleep claimed her, Elara reflected on the journey that had brought her here, from commander to captive, from enemy to lover, from conqueror to bridge builder. The Empire had taught her that strength came from domination, from forcing others to submit to superior power. Earth, and Aiden, had shown her a different truth, that the greatest power came from connection, from vulnerability embraced rather than conquered. In the morning, she would continue the work of building peace between their worlds. For tonight, in this moment of perfect union between two beings from distant stars, she had all the proof she needed that differences could become strengths when approached with open hearts rather than weapons of war.